Welcome to the Black Belter podcast. This is episode 1, and kicking us off today, I'm here with Mr. Adam Shelley. For any of you who don't know, Adam is 2 times world champion and 5 times European champion in ITF Taekwondo, along with being 3 times Irish Open kickboxing champion. Those successes I just mentioned make Adam the best ITF Taekwondo fighter that Ireland has ever produced, along with being, in my opinion, the best pound for pound fighter in all of ITF Taekwondo in the last 5 years. Adam, along with his brother Ryan, is also making a switch into MMA, where they train under SBG Swords in Dublin. So today, I'm going to be talking to Adam about how he started Taekwondo, the success he's had in Taekwondo, and also how he's going about making that shift into MMA. So, let's get into it.
What's up, Adam?
How are you, Jamie? Thanks very much for having me on. Pleasure being the first guest on the Black Belter podcast.
Yeah. First, you had the awards to go with it, so we said we'd get you on.
Thanks very much.
So, since I was last talking to you, you had a fight back at the start of December, wasn't that right?
That's right, yeah. So that's been my last fight so far, and it was my most recent fight and my last fight of 2018. So basically, it was a guy I actually fought him before at the Irish Open.
Oh, really?
3 years ago. Gio Marchese is his name, and he's starting up his own. It's basically just his own little fight night show, like promotion, called Skill Striker. So what he's trying to do, he's trying to bring back the continuous flow element to kickboxing and taekwondo, sort of. So
Nice,
from what a lot of people who would watch competitive taekwondo and kickboxing can notice at the moment is it is becoming more and more like stop-start.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
People fixing gloves, all this type of stuff. And it's just the way the sport is going. But to the untrained eye and to somebody watching it for a bit of entertainment, it can take away that buzz of the fight. So he's really trying to bring back just a continuous flowing fight with artistic shots like spinning kicks, head kicks, all this type of stuff. So that was reflected in the rules system. Like a jump spinning head kick would be awarded 5 points, I think it was, 4 or 5. Normal spinning kick to the head was like 3 or 4, something like that. So basically, these shots that people want to see were much more rewarded, like to encourage the fighters to throw them. In terms of like contact and stuff like that, it was wasn't light contact, wasn't full contact. The way it was described to us in the meeting before the fight, it was strong technical contact. So basically, if a fighter went out and was swinging haymakers with punches trying to knock somebody out, they'd be penalised for that. But on the same token, if somebody ran onto the end of a back kick to the chin and they were knocked out, that would have been perfectly okay because it was sort of their own doing. Basically Neil Ernest actually contacted me about it originally because Neil had a few of his guys going on.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
And Neil he gave me all the details. I was originally matched up against a guy called Ed Lofts, who's I hadn't actually heard of him before they matched me up against him, but he's a well-renowned kickboxer over in the UK.
Would he be more full contact kickboxing as opposed to...
I think he ventured into full contact. He has a points background. I think he was fairly well up there in all the disciplines. So and based off the reaction that got on Facebook and everything, a lot of people were saying, this is going to be a cracking fight or whatever. So that was great. I was really looking forward to that, blah, blah, and it was all set to go. But just unfortunately, Ed had to withdraw from the fight. I think it was a contract issue with some new promotion he's with now. So David Higgins, a guy, I can't remember what club he's from. No, I can't remember. But he was, Gio arranged for him to step up to the main event, and we fought each other, and it was a cracking fight. Like, David, he brought his A game, and he was a very tough challenge. And for me, it was because I think most of last year, like, I spent training a lot of like K1 boxing style to try make that switch over to MMA. Yeah. So going back to that, like the speed of like light contact and stuff like that,
it's different.
It caught me a bit at the start, and it was like I said, it was just an adjustment period that I had to go through in the fight. I got the win in the fight, but it was hard earned. Like, David really, he put it up to me. So like that always, like, you learn from it, you move on, and it just sort of has reminded me to go back to them roots a little bit and keep keep that style.
What got you there, like, and what could carry over to MMA
That's it,
and benefit you a lot?
Exactly.
It looked like a good show.
Yeah,
it looked like to have a different setup. I saw some clips, or just Instagram clips, Snapchat clips. It looked to be a different kind of setup to the show. It didn't have the ring really in the middle, did it?
No,
you kind of had a
so
crowd on 3 sides.
That's right.
Yeah, I thought it looked like a good setup.
Yeah, it was really good, and even just the way we had walkouts, there was music, DJ, big crowd there. So for Gio's first time running the show, I have to say he knocked it out of the park. Like, it was really well done there.
Definitely a lot of the problem, I think, as well, with, as you were saying, with like Taekwondo and even the kickboxing, is that stop-start. If you don't know what's going on, you just want to see a free-flowing fight with lots of shots thrown and lots of fancy shots, like lots of stylish shots being thrown and hopefully landing.
Exactly, and even throughout the night, so it was the day, was broken into, in the afternoon there was like a kids show, then there was a small break,
nice.
And then the adults and sort of older teens were in the later show, and I sat back and I was watching a lot of the kids stuff, and there was serious talent there, and just a lot of Neil Ernest guys really impressed me, like, a lot of his students, and it was some really good stuff. And then when it moved into the later show, because I was the last fight, I got to see a lot of the fights beforehand, and there was some really nice shots thrown, really nice shots landed, really got the crowd going, so it was good to see that, but yeah, overall, I have to say, really, really happy with the show.
So you'd be happy to fight in that show again?
I would do, and also anybody ever gets the opportunity to fight on it, I'd encourage them to go for it. Like, Gio's a good guy.
And you were well looked after and everything?
Well looked after,
because you fought in the show in Scotland, and
that's right,
Mike Lewett looked after you well. That was
Mike as well. That was another show. So this is, again, something that I've gotten a little bit more access to last year, and it's the first time, like, people getting me onto their shows, and two shows there that I fought on across the water, just in Scotland and England. Mike Leska and Gio Marchesi have both really looked after me, so I'm very appreciative for that. And any guys get the opportunity to fight in their shows, I'd really encourage it.
Savage. I actually want to take it back a small bit and talk about for why you got into martial arts, and how you got into martial arts, and why Taekwondo. Why not another martial art? Why Taekwondo?
Okay, so this is I think it's like a lot of people's stories, like, with getting into martial arts. So I grew up two brothers. I have an older brother, Alex, and a younger brother, Ryan.
Everybody knows Ryan, but not many people know Alex. They don't know he's there.
Alex, black belt as well. And I always say about Alex, out of the three of us, had the most natural talent. Just didn't click with him, learn going on. He wanted to focus on other areas of life. But so the three of us as young lads, always just fighting with each other, running riot in the house. And from watching your Karate Kids and Bruce Lee or whatever the sorts we had on DVD, wanted to do some sort of, we wanted to do karate. That was it, like, because that's what we were exposed to.
I was the same. It was, I think it's very much, I don't know if it's an Irish thing or just what it's a European thing or so. It's when you hear martial arts, the first thing that comes to your mind is karate. It's not any other. It's just martial arts is karate, and then it's only when you start to get into it and you hear, like, there's so many other martial arts.
Exactly, so, and I think that's from, like, the movies and stuff like that, and just how it's marketed or whatever. And I don't know. That's just, for me, it was, I want to do karate. I want to be in a white suit, kicking and punching. Like, that was that, and I was happy once I was doing that. So basically, my dad, he would have started looking around and trying to research clubs, and my uncle at the time. He had started training Taekwondo actually in Exchequer Street, which is the old Taekwondo centre, under Master Brendan O'Toole and Master Jerry Martin, I think, would have been in there at the time as well. So he was over in the house one day, and I'm sure we were probably kicking and punching him, and he was saying, look, I'm after starting Taekwondo. And also, one of my friends on the road, like 2 or 3 doors up, his dad did Taekwondo too. So, like, once I heard white suit, kicking and punching, I was like, right, that'll do me. So the nearest club to us at the time was in like Alsa. It was like a sport and leisure centre just locally, about 10 minutes up the road. And so that was actually AIMA, which is like, if I can remember what that stands for now, it's like Action International Martial Arts Association.
Yeah, something like
it was a form of ITF Taekwondo.
Yeah.
And that was
the many forms.
Yeah, that club was run by James Farrell at the time. So we started there, everything we expected it to be, everything we wanted it to be, trained there for 3 years. I think we got to, again, they use a different grading system and a different belt system. I think we got to orange belt, which is the equivalent of green tag.
Okay.
So our pattern would have been Dosan at the time.
Yeah.
But then we moved, my family, we moved to Australia for a year. So I would have been age 9. Ryan would have been 7, and Alex would have been 12. Yeah. So we moved to Australia for a year, and again, my dad wanted to keep us in martial arts. We wanted to stay in martial arts. So we enrolled. It was in a WTF club over there. Again, at that time, we didn't really know the difference between ITF, WTF, kickboxing,
No, you don't.
taekwondo. You don't. You know,
No.
It was all the same. So again, it was the nearest club to us. We ran that in conjunction with football, swimming, whatever else we were doing at the time. And like at that stage of our lives, like although the three of us, we loved martial arts, we were always doing it, but we didn't know like sort of the road it was going to take us on. Like it was just pure hobby, like, you know,
once, twice a week, and
exactly.
you were just loving it. Yeah.
Yeah, get your grades. Belts would have been the main focus over competitions at that time. I could take or leave the competitions, you know, but the belts was all on my mind, like looking to the black belts in the class, wanting a black belt. So as I said, we lived in Australia for a year. We came back then, and so we originally lived in Swords, but then when we moved back, we moved to Whitehall, it's closer to the city in Dublin. And again, straight away, my dad was on the blower looking for local taekwondo clubs, Yellow Pages, whatever it was at the time. We looked up, and he found Mr. Jones in Calesta Taekwondo. And we basically started there straight away when we got back, and that was our club then ever since. We trained there right up until the three of us got our black belts in June 2009, and then I pushed for national team then in the November, which would have been the World Championships in Argentina.
Yeah.
Ryan was too young, and Alex had leave insert, so Alex didn't push for that one, so I was the only one. And that's just basically it all took off from there. You know, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just when I look back, like how far we've come and all that type of thing, it's...
You don't realise it when you start, do you? You just turned up because, like you said, you started off just wanting to kick and punch.
That's it.
Like I know myself, I started off watching the Power Rangers, and you're seeing all these flips and the kicks and the spinning and the punching, and you're going, geez, I wouldn't mind doing some of that. And like that, you wanted to start karate, but my dad had, through a friend, got in contact with Adrian Byrne about training taekwondo. So my dad said, would you do taekwondo instead of karate? I just said, grand, whatever.
Whatever,
so
whatever gets you scrapping.
I just went down, wherever we're doing the backflips and the kicks, that's where I want to go. So, and it's funny because I remember the first day I turned up, and we were actually practicing rolls, forward tumbles, backward tumbles.
Brilliant.
And in my mind, this was the practicing for the backflips. It was this is the first day, we'll get there. And then we did some kicking as well in the class. So I was thinking, oh yeah, that's the practice for when you do the flip and the kick. So trained 16 years and I've never done a backflip in my life.
We'll have to get on to Adrian about that one now.
But I've achieved it and still enjoying training. Like, you just don't realise where you're going to go with it. So it's an experience. Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
You don't know.
You know, it's great.
So you were on the national team then. So
yeah, so that's when it all started to get serious. Then, you know, in the lead up to that competition now. So like I said, I got my black belt. I was 15 years of age. I was eligible for national team. So Mr. Jones, my instructor, like, he advised me, you know, look, go for it. We decided that the 58 kilo division was the one, like, you know, because I think I was walking around at about 55 at the time, like, you know, and I was some lurch, like, you know, I still am. But I would have taken my growth spurt, so I would have had to be 5'10". I would say 5'10", 5'11".
Yeah, so for the people who don't, what height are you now?
Right now I'm 6'2.5". Yeah, not quite the 6'3".
Just so people are clear, Adam is quite tall and has always been quite tall.
So like, and as you can imagine, 5'10" or 11 at 55 kilos is basically like a rate.
And 15 years of age.
And 15 years of age. So we decided, look, no point in cutting any more weight at that age because I had nothing on me to lose. So I went with the 58 kilos and went through the whole selection process. There was squad sessions, you know, national competitions in order to sort of impress the coaches and get your name out there to get selected for the team. And at that time, it still is actually, there was 3 juniors selected per weight. Pretty sure I was the 3rd choice junior, like got in off the skin of my teeth.
Everybody's the same.
Yeah.
You just barely get in there. But it's what you do when you get in there then that really counts, isn't it?
That's the thing, you know. So based off like the last selection competition, if my memory serves me correctly, I was the last one getting in. But look, I got in, that was that. I was happy enough to just say I was on the Irish team then. So training carried on, you know, pushed on. So that would have been the September, pushed on to the November. And then there I was on a plane to Argentina for the World Championships, never having fought outside of Ireland, only ever fought, my first venue would have been Cork down the Neptune Stadium. So like it was just...
Yeah, it's definitely not recommended. You would say go to these smaller competitions, go to your Dutch Opens, Roma Opens, whatever. The smaller competitions, get that experience before you're stepping on. And even if you, ideally you'd nearly go to European Championships beforehand. But
this is it, you know.
World Championships, yeah, not the best time to be.
Big jump, big jump. And from, if anybody can remember the World Championships in Argentina that year, like now, like I said, I don't know if this is just me because it was my first year. It was, the way the venue was laid out, it was like really like tiered seating and everything was looking down onto the mats, and there was plenty of Argentinian fans there, like, you know, very loud, like giving all their guys plenty of support. So I remember just walking in and being like, you know, sort of, what have I got myself into here, like, you know. And looking back, it could have made it was going to make or break me, like, you know. If I had it, look, like the way my competition actually went was I had my first fight against a Jamaican, went to extra time, won that, obviously absolutely gassed, gone, like, you know, that I'd emptied the load there. Then I went up against a Slovenian who would have been quite strong at that time under Tomas Barada, would have been their national coach and this guy's club coach, I think. And he beat me fairly well over the 2 rounds. Now, nothing to drive me away from the sport, thank God.
Yeah.
But it was a convincing win for him, you know. So I just, you know, the next couple of days sat around, took it all in, like, you know, and really just enjoyed the experience, got to know the lads on the team a lot better. And I had the bug then, you know, like straight away. I wanted to know when the next one was. Your
motivation is always at its highest after a championships.
It's unbelievable.
Whether you win, whether you lose, you just want to get back to training the next day. You're just on a high.
Yeah,
because either like, you're happy because you just won and you just want to get back in, or you've lost and you want to take away what you want to start fixing on what you need to fix for the next one. So like motivation is always that's what I find anyway. It's always at its highest right after a championships. No matter what. I always
find as well, it's like a 2-in-1, you know, because it's in a way like it's nearly like a holiday, especially because if you've been beaten then in your competition and you have a few days left, like, you know, it's all over. So, you know, you're with lads that you're friendly with and you have a bit of crack with, so you're having fun there. And then it's something you've been building up to for weeks and months beforehand from a competitive point of view. So when you come home, it's nearly like a double whammy of an anticlimax, like, you know, because you're nearly coming back off a holiday with your mates and also a huge competitive experience, like, you know.
There is post-championship blues is definitely a thing, like,
big time, 100%.
But like that, you've been, you see, it's not just a week's preparation. It's like tends to be 3-4 months.
That's,
you know, like if you have a championships on in April, you're starting more than likely in January.
Big
and you're
time.
going from January to the middle of April, end of April, of training 5-6 times a week. Sometimes 2 times a day. So like there's a big long stretch there where you have to be dedicated and committed. So at the back of that then it's climax with the championships and then you're home and it's, what do I do now?
This is it, yeah. So basically after Argentina then the next one up was European Championships in Sweden.
That's when I came into the team then, yeah.
That's where you came onto the team. We became good buddies back then. And again, similar experience. So I was actually, I don't want to say filled out, but put on about 3 or 4 kilos. So I was probably more into my weight at this time, 58 kilos.
You probably just grew that extra bit.
That's the thing, yeah. Probably went up rather than now. But I was 16 now. It's turned 16 in March. This competition was in the May. Why I thought this, I don't know, but I was going over to that one being like, well, this is the one, you know, having been away once, I know the drill here. I'm 16 now, a little bit heavier. This is it, you know, no problem. So my dad and my younger brother Ryan, again too young to compete, came over to watch this one. They hadn't been to Argentina. That was a costly trip, and in a sport that's not funded, it was tough enough getting me there, never mind the family trekking over, you know. So here we are, Europeans in Sweden. Won my first fight against actually a well-known competitor now, Norbert Rismaier from Hungary. Came up against him my first round.
That's not a bad win to have on the record.
Yeah. No, at the we both improved a lot since then. And then my second fight was against another well-known ITF competitor at the moment, Tural Masimov from Russia. Again, for him, I think it was his first international. So again, I bowed out of the competition there. Lost, unanimous decision. Didn't really know what went wrong. Like, this is in my head, I did the same preparation, but I was just, obviously I was disappointed. But like I said earlier on, I had my dad there for this one. So when we got home, we spoke about it. I was expecting hugs and cuddles and, people feeling sorry for me. And my dad just, he just came out and said, I'll never go to one of these competitions again if I'm prepared the way I was. And 16-year-old lad, that's not what you want to hear straight away. But my dad, from as long as I can remember, has always just been brutally honest with me, never buttered us up.
Tell us what you need to hear.
Tell us what we need to hear, not what we want to hear. Exactly. Straight to the point, the way he sees it. Sometimes if he's wrong, sometimes he's right. It doesn't matter. He just says it how he sees it. Take it on board if you want. So, couple of days went past, we probably didn't talk, but then I saw where he was coming from. He just saw a lot of gaps in my performance, and when he compared me then to the top countries, who at that time would have been probably Poland, Slovenia, Russia, probably in around them countries. Ireland at that time, they weren't really up there in terms of the best countries. The medals were few and far between.
Yeah, we were just coming. We were starting to
creep in.
Come in.
Each one we take 1 or 2 gold medals. Richard Ford, most people know him. He took his gold medal that one, and Naomi Kunge would have taken a gold medal at that one as well.
Best overall junior female.
Best overall, yeah. Hope I'm not leaving anyone out there. Junior female team patterns, there we go. They would have taken a gold.
Yeah.
So like I said, they were starting to come, not in abundance, but they were coming. So that as well, coupled with obviously what my dad is telling me, give me that hunger then that, well, I want one of them gold medals. I want one of them bronze medals even at that 100%, time.
100%, yeah.
So changed up my training a little bit back then. Nothing magic, invested in a couple of kettlebells, I think. Me and my dad, I was only in 5th year of school, just started looking up stuff online about how to do, basic strength training, some fitness training, joined the gym, again, just started getting under the bar, doing nothing too mad, just basic strength training. And I think because of my body type and physicality at the time, that went a long way to sort of, help me then in my performance. Yeah. So next one up then was Worlds in New Zealand. Again, another long trip, expensive trip, went on my own. This time I made it to the quarterfinals and had a really close fight with a Slovenian competitor, and I was just pipped, absolutely gutted now this time, because I came through 2 rounds this time, won them convincingly enough as well. So after that one, that was probably up to this point, as opposed to the first 2 competitions I mentioned, that was probably my most disappointing loss, because I actually did have a chance.
And you had that extra preparation.
That extra preparation, the extra time, the extra effort, and I actually did have a chance. Didn't go my way. So it was at this point then, so again, came home, did the analysis with my dad, my brothers, my mum even, she always puts her spoke in. And we kept doing what we were doing physically, and obviously Mr. Jones was always an input, help me out with things in the club, always tweaking. But at this level, you're training, it doesn't, stop with your training in the club. Yeah. It has to carry on at home. So that's why I was very lucky to have a family influence. So this one, we actually started introducing a little bit of kickboxing training at the time. The Slovenians would have been quite big in the kickboxing circuit as well, and definitely at the World Championships in New Zealand, the Slovenians would have been very dominant, really dominant. Would have won a couple of medals at junior male team sparring. They would have won. A few of their seniors would have done very well. So obviously it's natural to look up and see what the best are doing.
And even for us, we had 1 gold medal at that competition, which was Dylan, who also had a kickboxing background as well with him,
This
so
is
it was
it,
kind of
you
seeing,
know.
it was kind of looking like you need to be kind of crossing them over.
This is the
not
thing,
necessarily
you know.
the case, but that's the way it kind of was at that time.
Exactly. So we started training then, again, local club around the corner, Robbie Haw. He Black Panther martial arts it was called at the time, and now it's sort of known as Elite Fighter. But very good points coach, light contact kickboxing coach, and we started doing a lot of training around there. And he was extremely influential and, you know, tweaking a few bits of my game, like, you know, helping me just bridge that gap sort of between quarterfinals and a gold medal. So 8 months down the line, then after introducing that type of training along with my taekwondo training, along with my physical training, I managed then to take a gold medal at the Europeans in October 2011. That was the first one, and that's always the most special because it was my younger brother Ryan, and he won it with me a long time, and that was his first competition. I'm always jealous of him at that. He's one of
the very few people to walk into a championships their first one and win a gold medal.
First one, and he was 47 kilos fighting in 52 kilos. Like literally, he was there for the trip, you know. Like that's all he was there for. And
that's what people's first time on the team. That's what the first one is.
That's it,
because
you know.
it's only after the first one you kind of realise, okay, you see the level, you see everybody else around, and it's like, okay, I know what I have to do now. That's the level I have to get to. So you end up going away, and maybe the second one you can go and win a gold or take a medal, and then you progress. But the first one is never usually where you go and you take that gold medal. So for Ryan,
he went and took that. Now, like I said, it was really, really good. And actually, that was my first one, the first competition that my mum went to. My mum hadn't been to any of them. My dad, like I said, was in Sweden, but my mum and dad, they both came to Slovakia for the Europeans. So, and then for me and Ryan to win. So that's always a special one there. So then I had to sit the next one out then because of leaving cert, unfortunately. But that was the end of my junior career then.
But that's definitely, I don't think a story or a side of you that not a lot of people know, that they've only seen maybe what you've done in the last 5 or 6 years, where it's medal after medal after medal. They don't realise that you actually came into the team, we'll say, not very good.
Exactly.
No, that being said,
100%.
Most of us weren't that very good. I wasn't very good myself. Like when we were in Sweden, a lot of us took hidings.
Exactly.
But we went away and we adjusted and we did improve. But that's it. You built all the time along. You, as you said, you improved your training and you were getting through around more each time, to where like Worlds you just were outside the medals to then push on and actually take that gold. So yeah, it shows that it's not always just natural talent that you turn up with. Like you do have to put in the work, and 100%, it will come.
100%.
It does come. It does improve. So then you went senior.
Basically then, I went senior. Had a couple of other upsets at senior, you know. My first two, World Cup in Brighton, World Championships in Benidorm. Went out in the quarterfinals of both of them. And again, funny, like with them. So I remember finishing my leaving cert, which for any European people listening is basically like your end of school exams, big exams.
Next is college.
Is college. Yeah. So put in massive prep in the lead up to Brighton and Benidorm, no injuries, like literally trained as hard as I could, and went out in the quarterfinals of both of them. And I was, thinking, all right, I've a big step up to do here. And the first one that I managed to get a gold medal in as a senior was the European Championships in Italy. And then funny for that one, I had to have my appendix out in the beginning of that year.
I remember that now, actually. Yeah, and I had forgotten that. Yeah.
I was wrote off for trying, like appendix, it's surgery on the body and stuff like that, So it was actually looking like I wasn't even going to get to that Europeans. And I remember, even the coaches, asking me, is it wise sort of to select you for this Europeans because of the operation and stuff like that? And I said, look, we'll give it a go, let's just. So for that one, there was a lot of pressure off me. Like the first two, as I said, I felt World Cup in Brighton, World Championships in Benidorm, I felt huge pressure. I felt, I have to carry on that gold medal from a junior. And I have to step up.
People are expecting it,
So with this one, I'd had my appendix out. I'd say I got 6 weeks of training in, and the first week or two of that would have been very light because I had to readjust and get built up. So I was going over there, not defeated, but I was like not expecting a hell of a lot from myself. Like, I was going because I wanted to, and I won it, like, and it was just after that it really sort of taught me like
mindset
and how to approach these competitions that, of course, we put our life and soul into them, we train hard, but you've always got to remember what you're there for. Like, and from what I remember about that one, I'm pretty sure that's probably one of my most enjoyable trips. It was great crack. We're in a great spot, amazing weather, amazing food. It was in Riccione in Italy, like, it was just an amazing week. And like I said, I wasn't going over there burdening myself with I have to do this, I have to do that. I just went out, performed, and I managed to get a gold medal.
I think if you put a lot of pressure on the result, if you're putting everything into the result, if that doesn't go your way, then you kind of feel like, well, what did I do it for? What did I put those months of training in for? Why did I bother? It was a waste of time. It was a waste of my own money because you have to pay for yourself. If you put a lot more stock in the preparation, enjoying the preparation, training with your mates in the club, at the squad session, enjoy being with your mates at the competition, and enjoy taking in the other fights that are happening around you, and just enjoying it, enjoying the training, enjoying the process.
Enjoy the process. That's it.
For use of a cliche, but that's what it is. And then the result,
100%.
Yeah, obviously you want to win, but of course, like that's what you're there to win. But look, at the end of the day, if you don't, there's always going to be a mourning period. Like after, you're going to feel like shit.
Exactly.
After losing,
it's a horrible feeling. But
my thing is always fighting is, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to lose. Okay, that will feel like shit. I'll get over that. But I'm going to enjoy the rest of it. I'm going to enjoy the training. I'm going to enjoy the trip while I'm there, and just take in the experience of whatever competition it is.
That's exactly it, and just as you said, you chalk it up as experience.
Like you said, it takes off the pressure. Less pressure. The more you build it up in your head of, I have to get this gold medal, otherwise it was a waste, and then you don't get it. It just feels like that waste of time. And the chances are, like, you have 5 rounds. It tends to be 5 fights.
Yeah, especially in most of the divisions now. It's 5 fights to the gold.
It's tough. Like, only one person is going unbeaten in that division. There's only one person going winning 5 fights. So exactly. The chances are that the odds are probably stacked against you. But like, some days you'll come out on top, and other days you won't. So you have to put a bit more stock in something else as opposed to just the result.
This is it.
But
so basically,
we're saying that then, but then after Riccione, you didn't have many bad days after Riccione.
No, I have to say I was good after that now. Like, I went European Cup later on that year, got the gold. The following year, I had a Worlds and Europeans win. Year after that, Europeans. And there was more after that. But, like, it was just, again, momentum then, like, and that. But even for some of them other competitions, like, I had hiccups and I had tough lead-ups to them. Like, for example, the European Cup in Hungary, which would have been later on that year, I had a bad groin strain. Like, didn't kick for like 5 weeks before the competition, threw a kick in my first fight, and I went again, like, and basically had to get through the competition on hands, which, like,
I didn't actually know that. That's pretty savage. Like,
it's just one of them things. And then, like, that's where definitely your mindset comes into it then. Like, what are you prepared to do? Like, you're going to spit the dummy out of the pram, or are you going to, like, are you going to just knuckle down and try to get the job done when you're there on the day?
Like you said, okay, like that, see what happens.
That's
if I win, you can get through. Great. Sure, if you lost, like, you tried you did what you could on that day.
And just one fight at a time, So it's just like I said, for that one, looking at the draw sheet, it was 5 fights to win. So, like, all right, that's the first one done. Then just counting them down until the final. Then thankfully got that done. The big one then after that then would have been 2015. That was probably would have been my most successful year, just as well as 2017, but just a Worlds and a European.
It's a big year.
That's, everyone always says that, when the Worlds and the Europeans, that's your, like, not saying anyone, like, you can come along and win one, like, and then you can fall off, but to maintain that for the year. So as we were speaking about earlier on, the World Championships were in May that year. I basically started preparations in January, February, say.
Yeah.
So led that right up as far as the Worlds, won that one, took a very short layoff, And then, like, you know, you're back in then over summer because the Europeans are in October. So you're basically on it for the entire year in terms of your training, nutrition, managing weight, all this type of stuff. So yeah, that was a great year. Again, when you get to results, it's always a great year.
Yeah.
Great competitions though. Really had some tough opposition in them ones, you know, in individual and team sparring. I really, like, I got to taste the most of the top competitors in ITF that year, like, you know, and that's when I really sort of went, okay, well, I'm sort of up there with the rest of them, like, you know. That's the benefit year.
That's the good thing about the team. For someone like yourself, you get to step in against the guys from the other weights, because obviously there's no weight limit in the team, so you got to test yourself against the minus 85s, the plus 85s, 78s, and you were able to prove yourself that you're good enough to beat them. So.
That's right, yeah. So, and then I was always tipping around in the kickboxing as well around this time. And actually that year I started introducing even a bit of boxing training as well, like, you know, because not for any particular reason, just always enjoyed watching boxing. And so I started bringing it in, and I was supposed to do the national championships one year. I think it was the novice championships, but there was actually a problem with my medical card at the time. Doctor made a mistake on my eyesight report, so I never got to fight at that, unfortunately.
Would you have fancied doing well?
At that one, yeah, because like from this, how my sparring was going in the club and stuff like that, against good level, decent level guys, you know, I was holding my own. And as I said, it was novice level championships, which would have been, you know, just a stepping stone to other stuff. But I always, with Taekwondo and kickboxing experience, transferring into boxing, like, you still have that, like, your ability to manage distance and timing. Like, at the end of the day, although it's different rule sets, different, like, you haven't got your kicks, but the principle is somebody's trying to hit you and you have to hit them. So, like, you know, don't definitely get hit, like, and you win that. And I know it sounds so simple, but that's
when you just break it down.
When I'm telling the
easy
kids,
game.
Exactly, the kids in the Taekwondo club, I run my own club now, and that's what I just tell them that when you sort of get confused in it all, right, like, you know, what am I trying to do here? Hit and don't get hit.
Yeah.
You know, that's that. And I
Simple.
think, as most people will know, in any combat sports, Floyd Mayweather, you have to just, you know, that's what he did, and that's what he prided himself off, and that's what got him to where he is. He literally took that phrase, hit and don't get hit, and that's what, in my opinion, made him the best boxer of all time. You know?
Controversial.
Controversial, but
some might say.
Some might say, yeah.
Well, I would find it somewhat controversial. Other people might not. They see Floyd Mayweather has been the greatest of all time.
The greatest defensive boxer, anyway. Let's say that.
I would think.
Yeah.
If I had to say the greatest fighter of all time, I would say Sugar Ray Robinson for me.
All right, yeah. Like, you know, obviously can't dispute, but
no, like that. It's a lot easier to watch Floyd. We've all seen Floyd when you're watching blurred black and white clips of Sugar Ray Robinson.
That's true, and different eras too.
Different eras, but okay, we get into a bit of this. I think a lot of stock is put into 50-0 when there's been longer winning streaks. Like Julio Cesar Chavez has, I think it was about 83 fights unbeaten.
That's true, and I only found that out there like a week or two ago.
He had a close fight against Meldrick Taylor to where he had that last second knockout. I think he was about 67-0 at that point. And he managed to pull it out of the bag. Maybe a bad stoppage, but he managed to pull it out and actually went on to be up around, I think it was around 83-0. So to me, that seems a much more impressive run than 50-0.
That's true.
No, yeah, I think he lost maybe 6-7 fights in his entire career, had 100 and something fights, 90 something wins and 6 losses. Round about that. I haven't fact checked that, but that winning streak, like that many wins, that seems like a better total amount of wins, a better winning streak than 50-0.
Yeah, I definitely think from Mayweather's point of view, and like especially like, well, our era anyway, maybe why there's more popularity and around Mayweather is like he marketed himself like, you know, really, really well, like, you know, and he obviously then the money man and stuff like that, you know, so obviously that's gonna lead, that it's probably swaying my opinion, like, you know, but it's just
the appeal of how he even spends his money, and he might like that, the way he's quite flashy, which people kind of, it's why I suppose they're even drawn to Conor McGregor to some degree as well, of spending the money, flash the cash. But yeah, boxing wise, he is a great boxer, there's nobody disputing that. I I think then some people don't like Floyd for other things that happen outside the ring.
That's true, yeah.
The whole
and a lot of that seems to get
violence
shoved under the carpet. But
yeah, I don't think it really should. But that's why, as a boxer, big fan. Yeah, I can admire the way he flashes the cash, but I'm not really a fan of him as a personality. But like I said, I can massively, I really appreciate him as a boxer. But we'll get back into more of that later, I think. So you had that winning streak. As you said, 2015 was your most successful year with a Worlds win and a Europeans win. Then it was pretty much the same again, 2016. It was another European win.
That was
it?
European win, yeah.
You only had the one competition?
Just the one. I went, there was a World Cup that year in Budapest.
Ah, yes.
I didn't do that. I chose to attend the Wackos instead for kickboxing. And I was actually beaten in that one in the quarterfinals by a Russian competitor. And I have to say, I learned probably more in that competition than I did the whole year. That was in the October, and that week the Russians had really started to bring a different style to light contact kickboxing at this time. In around 2014, 15, 16, 17. I didn't actually get to see a lot of the stuff from the most recent Wacko Europeans in 2018, but from what I saw them years, they started to bring this high pressure style into light contact, a lot of hands, wearing their opponents down, and I was very intrigued by it, because it beat me, I
think they also benefited from rule changes as well, didn't they? They became a lot more harsher on exits.
Yeah, it went back to
really benefits the high pressure and the fighter coming forward to, like you said, the style that they were bringing.
This is it, and I went back to a 7x7 area that time, so it had been an 8x8, and I went back to 7x7, and that's actually how I lost that fight. Was I was disqualified on exits, because the guy kept backing me up, backing me up, and on my ring that day. This isn't. I don't think I have my facts entirely right here, but it's somewhere around here. Out of 27 fights, 8 or 9 were disqualified, I think.
That's massive.
Yeah. That's massive. 1/3 of the fights on that ring that day ended in disqualification. Now, that could be a bit high, possibly 7. I just remember at the time everybody talking about that particular ring, and as you said there, it was just they're trying to change the rules to make it more appealing to fans, and we're only speaking about it at the start about the skill striker. They're trying to make it more engaging, which I'm totally on board with, but I just felt that year maybe it was just a little bit drastic. You know?
I think you want it like that. You want to keep, and like you said on the skill striker card, you want to keep the skill.
Yeah.
You don't just want action, just reckless action, people swinging up close just for the sake of seeing action. You want to see good action. So I think for me, kickboxing, making that ring smaller and a bit harsher on the exits, it did create more action, but a lot more holding.
That's true.
Stop start.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe if they kept the ring bigger, they brought in a bit more, maybe you could be harsher on the exits, but reward good skill, good technique with the action there.
That's it. Just trying to get the sweet spot, just a nice fine balance between it, Definitely, yeah. It was a good experience though, I have to say. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, then we move on to, you had the Europeans in 2017 in Bulgaria, which you won there as well. But I think the biggest one, and I don't know if it's one of the sweetest, I find it one of the sweetest one, was the Worlds in Ireland, where
I don't even know where to start with the Worlds in Ireland.
It was some week.
It was just amazing. So for
the people who don't know, we managed to finish number 1 in the world. I don't actually have the amount of medals on hand. It was 28 medals in total. Do you remember how many?
If I remember correctly, 8, 9 or 10 gold medals.
I think it was 8 gold medals.
8, I think, yeah.
And after that, I'm not fully sure on the silvers and but there was 28 medals in total. So that was the first time Ireland had finished number 1 in the world. We had finished second in 2013 at the Worlds. It was also on in Ireland, in City West in Dublin, the first time Ireland had held any championships. So to have a World Championships was massive. The juniors got us off to a great start in the first day or so. It was actually the senior females actually.
They did brilliant. How many finals did they have?
They had
3 or 4.
It was 4 finals in a row with 5 fighters. So
that's right, yeah.
Katie fought in the final, Maeve had a final, Louise had a final, Sarah had a final against Ellen, so there was an All-Ireland final. So we had 1 gold, 4 silvers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that was some time. That was some day to the Irish went off, and there was a lot of pressure then on the lads.
Big time.
Going into that was on the Thursday.
They competed on the
Thursday, I think.
The Thursday, yeah, and then we were up on the Saturday.
We went up on the Saturday, so there was a lot of pressure there, but I think we lived up to it.
Just about, yeah.
So.
No, but I was just going to go on to that, like, just the whole week in general, like, I think just with the buzz of each day with medals coming in and from juniors, seniors, males, females, was just, and everybody was congratulating each other. But like for me, you know, that week was by far the peak of my Taekwondo career, like, you know, and I don't think it can ever be topped, really. Like, you know, it's just, it was, and I think it really reflected the hard work of the ITA as well over the last how many years before that. Like, you know, they just pulled it all together. Not being biased, in my opinion, it was the best run World Championships ever.
No, it was the best to be around,
and it was that would have been my fifth World Championships, and it was by far, like, you know, I just the arena in itself, having the majority, probably 80% of the competitors and coaches staying in City West, and you just walk across in City West Hotel.
It had an Olympic kind of village. It was feel.
Like an Olympic
everybody
village
was
feel,
around. Everybody was together. Everybody was kind of eating together at the dinner hall. Like, it had a nice buzz about it. It was good. Yeah, it was definitely the best for me. Definitely as well, the best World Championships I've been to. That would have been. It was actually my third. So I'm going to compete in my 4th in April. But yeah, I would think that's the best one.
For me as well, like, you know, obviously, as I mentioned earlier on, winning the gold medal was special and defending my title, but doing it alongside my brother, yourself, Jamie, good mate of mine. Colm Carroll is a really close friend of our family. Him and Ryan are really, really good friends, and Colm has become a great friend of mine. And my girlfriend as well, Sarah, like, you know, Sarah Lahan, she won 2 days before me. So just doing it sharing that experience with everybody was something special. Like, you know,
for me to win it, to win the Worlds, and to do it with the three of you, like, that made it that bit more special. And the way it happened of back-to-back final, like, you went out and won, I went out and won, Ryan's gone out winning, Colm's gone out winning. I think that was even it was great for us because you couldn't be the one to let the side down.
That was
I know going into my final, you were after just winning and coming off, and I was thinking, I cannot be the only silver medal out of the 4 of us
That's
here.
It, yeah.
It's like, if there's going to be a silver medal, it cannot be me.
Yeah.
And then Ryan, I know, is going out thinking the same. He's looking, there's 2 gold medals in the bag, and Colm's, I can't be the silver, and then Colm then just brought it home. So
that's it. But you know what else with the Worlds in Ireland, I think what was really special about it, like, for the years before and all the tournaments before, going to all these different countries, and we're always going away as a tight unit of Team Ireland, like, you know, and there's success and everybody's congratulating each other, and then you come back and maybe there's a national competition 2 months later, and you're talking to somebody and they're like, oh yeah, you know, we're following it on the live stream and we're following it on Facebook. So you never actually got to realise how much people were following you, like, you know, and how much people there were behind the Irish team pushing them on, and like, you just didn't really feel it because if we're over in Finland, for example, you have Team Ireland of 30 people cheering you on, which is great. But in Ireland, like, you know, all these people, as I said, who would say from all the clubs from all around the country came up to watch, and it was actually the first time I ever felt real pressure fighting in a competition, because like, even the night before my fight, like, you know, my phone was hopping, you know, with friends and college people, like one of my guy from college, one of like a scholarship guy who had got me into DCU and stuff like that, he was coming over to watch. People were just ringing, and it only sort of was like, and then even you'd be talking to somebody like, oh yeah, when are you competing? And it was like, Saturday. I'll be over to watch it. I'll be over to watch it.
Yeah, I remember speaking to you around then, and you were saying it felt different to the rest of them.
It felt really different.
For me, I actually felt it took the pressure off some bit. Like you said, when you won in Slovakia and you had your mum and dad there, you had the both of them there. For the Worlds in 2017, that was the first time my mum and dad had ever seen me fight at a competition like that, because it was on in Ireland.
That's amazing.
And I actually kind of felt more that it took the pressure off, because it felt more like it kind of brought it back to feeling just more like a Cork Open, a double, like an Irish competition.
Yeah,
you know, it kind of brought it back to just, this is just like one of those other competitions. It just happens the guy you're fighting is from Italy, he's from Poland, he's from Russia, but it's just the same thing. It's just a ring, and that's what it was for me. Like I said, no, I didn't have as much previous success, so probably not as much pressure to get the job done as yourself, but.
I also remember for that one as well, like I mentioned earlier on about having like, you know, injuries before competitions. Before that one, I had a fractured eye socket 6 weeks before the event. I think it was, I was in a boxing spar and got a fractured eye socket. So like the initial news that I got was that I wouldn't have been able to compete at the event, which was heartbreaking. Like, you know, I thought like, and like I said, this was just building and building and building for years, this Worlds in Ireland, and to not be able to compete at that would have been horrible, like, you know. But it turned out then when I met with a consultant, basically I was told my biggest fear was, because I was told this at the start, was that I could potentially like lose the sight in the eye if I took another bang, which I wouldn't have risked that for the competition.
Of course
but
not.
When I was told that the worst thing that could happen if I competed and even took a hard bang on it was the fracture could get a little bit worse and it could require surgery, I was happy to take that risk.
Yeah.
So I went in then. But for the 6 weeks beforehand, I hadn't sparred. Or like, well, I hadn't done like, you know, proper full sparring with face contact or whatever.
Yeah,
which,
the same with us, I remember.
Which I did feel in the first one or two, in my first 1 or 2 fights to that competition, just a little bit of sharpness or distance or whatever it was a little bit off.
You definitely. There was some closer fights against people you had beaten a lot easier previously.
Definitely.
And it's kind of funny because a lot of people may not know that you had that injury going in and you hadn't sparred. They just see what they saw at the championships and how you performed, and they think, "Ooh, Adam was close in that one. He was close in that one as well." But there's a perfectly good reason.
This is
not an excuse, because you still got the job done, but a reason for maybe why it was a bit closer.
But I remember even then, like the last couple of weeks leading up to it, so Robbie that I mentioned earlier on, like my kickboxing coach, he brought up like a face mask and I was supposed to spar with this face mask on, and I hated it so much. It was the worst thing ever sparring. Like, you know, I'd be sparring Ryan and Colin or whoever, and like they'd be like kicking and punching me at will because this face mask was sticking out like inches, you know, from my face. And it's just your distance, because, you know, maybe one of them is throwing a kick at me and I'm thinking, you know, I'm out of dodge here, and then bang, it'll whack me across the face. And like, you know, Robbie, you know, just kept saying, look, just it's worth it, you know, just stick with it. And I felt like shit, to be honest, in my sparring coming up to it, because I was, you know, getting destroyed in spars, and it was fogging up and everything, you know, coming into my later rounds.
I have seen them.
Oh, it was horrible. But look, it had to be done. So that was that. Glad I just got the job done. So it was a bit of relief, like, you know, when you know, when
you lived up to the pressure and the hype that's kind of coming into it.
Yeah.
And that was the last time you were going to fight in ITF Taekwondo? For a while at least.
Yeah, you know, but after that, I just decided that, again, we mentioned McGregor earlier on, like, you know, what he did over the last couple of years, like, you know, boosting the popularity of MMA in Ireland, like, you know, nobody can deny it, like, you know, it's just...
For me, I think, like, martial arts has become a lot more cooler. Potentially in the last couple of years. Definitely, like, the GAA is always going to be the biggest sport in Ireland. There's always going to be football, soccer, rugby. Obviously, there's going to be some popularity there with what the Irish team are doing, and Munster and Leinster and that. But martial arts, I feel, has become a bit more cooler. That there's this guy that we have that's really good at it, is the biggest name. Like, the biggest guy in the UFC is an Irishman, and I don't think people put enough or give enough respect to that. That, like, you have Americans, and it's given that, okay, they're good at most sports. They have so many people. Brazil, obviously, they have massive in MMA. Russia are always big. They have big population. But there's like a tiny country has the biggest star in the UFC.
It's crazy, really, you know.
And, like you said,
but even now, like, you know, coming down here today, I got a taxi to the train station, and I was talking to the taxi man, and like, he knows McGregor, he knows MMA, he knows martial arts. Like, everybody you talk to knows about it. So when you tell them that this is what you're involved in, they can relate to it now, rather than just saying, oh, well, like, oh, you're an animal, you fight in a cage. Like, you know, they can relate to what
I think
MMA
there is
is.
still some of that stigma around that it is like cockfighting, but I think there is more respect coming. There's more respect to all martial arts. I think all martial arts have felt a bit more, felt that improvement and a bit more respect coming to that sport on the back of McGregor.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
for me, basically, it's just been like, well, so with this growing popularity, more and more people going into it, and people that I'd know from other martial arts, and like, let's say, I don't know, like a judo guy, and he's trying his hand at it, a boxer, he's trying his hand at it. It seems to be where most martial arts roads are leading, like, you know, from a competitive point of view.
Follow the money.
Follow the money, this is it. But even from, even like testing yourself, like, you know, so maybe this, like, I don't know if other people feel this, you might as well, like, maybe it's a competitive side, but I'd find myself, I could be talking to a mate of mine and like he's asking me about Taekwondo, and I'm telling him about Taekwondo, and he says, you know, oh yeah, like, you know, my cousin is a black belt in judo. And the first thing that comes to my head is, would I beat him in a fight?
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Of course, yeah.
Or he tells me that his cousin boxes for Ireland, or his cousin does, I don't know, anything, a different type of kickboxing, jiu-jitsu. Straight away, the first thing comes into my mind, who'd win?
If we had a knock, who'd
win? Like, so I just think
and
MMA,
not necessarily, like, obviously if you fought him in your sport, you're going to beat him if he fights you. So when we put it together and we just say, right, let's go
in MMA, that seems to be the middle ground, like, you know. So for me, that's a big part of it, to test myself, like. And also I found myself watching some UFC events on the telly or whatever, and maybe I'm sitting with my mates having a few beers and we're watching it, and I find myself saying sometimes, like, you know, oh, I'd beat him on the feet. And I don't want to be the guy to be just sitting back on my chair being like, oh, I could have beaten him, I would have beaten him. Like, I'm 24, I have time, let's go do it, like, you know, rather than just talk about it.
Well, like, especially from our background with Taekwondo, and the fact that is like the kick in martial art, there's so many kicks. It's all about kicking to some degree. So you watch some of the fights in the UFC, and the level of kicking is atrocious.
Yeah, this is it.
Awful. Guys, like, a leg kick is the best they can do. Like, this big slow swing if they're trying to kick somebody in the head, and you're going, Jesus, like,
I know.
You're training every day, and that's the best your flexibility allows. So that's why I think, like, for me, I look back and I think there is something to be said, and there is a gap there for guys coming from Taekwondo, points kickboxing, or sport karate, whatever you want to kind of call it, being the same thing. Yeah. So I think there is a gap there for people to really expose people, other fighters, with the legs, if you know how to use it.
Definitely. Yeah, so like, and obviously then for me, like, last year, big challenge was, you know, trying to get my jiu-jitsu and wrestling and that up to scratch, like, you know, from an insurance point of view, that, of course, not all my fights I'm going to be able to keep at range or at distance and use my striking. So that's myself and Ryan, you know, we're training out in SBG Swords.
Yeah, how did you get in contact with them? How did you end up there? Because there's a lot of gyms in Dublin, so how was it that one you ended up in?
So, like, when we decided, let's give the MMA thing a try, anybody in Dublin, probably their first instinct would be, where does Conor McGregor train, and to go there. But my older brother Alex is good friends with Cathal Pendred, and then Cathal Pendred in turn is really good friends with Chris Fields. So Alex mentioned it to Cathal about, like, you know, the lads are thinking about MMA and they want to get into it, Cathal told Alex that Chris had opened up a gym in SBG in Swords, which is only 15 minutes out the road from us. So we said, you know, let's take ourselves out there, local club, like, handy nearby, and just wow, like, you know, was just blown away by the standard, striking and grappling, everything. Chris is
he's more of a jiu-jitsu background himself, is it? Or
he originally started in kickboxing, like when he would have started training, and then made the move into MMA. But I think, like, he's fairly well balanced, but like, his jiu-jitsu is, like, you know, it's top drawer. Also,
was he at some? Was he at Europeans recently?
He messes around with the jiu-jitsu quite a bit anyway. Tom King as well, he's the other coach. Him and Chris run.
He would have came from the original crew of Chris and Cathal as well, did he in SBG with John Kavanagh.
So Tom would have been John's first black belt, as far as I know.
Yeah, I remember, it was only, to be honest, it's only the name is ringing a bell from Paddy Houlihan's podcast No Shame. He'd Cahill was on that,
Yeah.
and they mentioned Tom, which is why the name is
So like
ringing
he's
a bell.
got an extremely like, you know, technical and high
Yeah.
level of jiu-jitsu, which has helped me a lot. But one thing that's really helped, like, you know, obviously being sort of an eager beaver, like, and coming from a high level of taekwondo and kickboxing, like it's been a year now since I've been training it, and if it had been up to me, I would have jumped into a fight 8 months ago, and the truth would have been I probably would have got killed. You know, I would have gotten destroyed on the ground. Chris has been very, like, you know, straight up, honest, and like, you know,
Again, what you need.
getting what we need, like, you know, and all right, yeah, like you've got flashy kicks, but that's not always going to cut it. Like, you know, that's like, you know, and he's basically he's preparing us for the highest level. So that's why, like, you know, we haven't fought up to now, because we have to reach a standard that he's happy with before we take a fight.
Yeah, but I think that's what you want, really. Like, you want to, by the sounds of it, he's looking at you could go far.
Big time,
like we'll put the foundations in now to where maybe you could get to the UFC, to where it's no point kind of just winning fight after fight after fight, just doing what you're good at, and then all of a sudden you get to a high level and you come unstuck,
and you're
going,
out,
well, where's your ground game? So it's better take the time now, put in the basics, get yourself to be able to work a bit on the ground, and then when you go up the levels, you'll be much better prepared.
That's the plan.
Than just jumping in and a couple of amateur fights and handy win there, because you could get some good matchups. Like, you know, if you're kind of building up a record, like if you're stacking up your record with some handy fights, eventually that goes away and you're going to have to fight somebody who's good on the ground. So
that's right.
Might as well put in the basics, put in the work early.
Yeah, so like
give you the best chance.
So the plan will be, you know, probably around soon enough now, probably March or whatever, like, you know, hopefully have my first amateur fight. Like, you know, I'm going to start at amateur, get all my experience there, make any mistakes maybe, you know, that's everybody's attitude. Like, you know, some people jump straight into the pro game. That's their choice, like, you know, but Chris's advice to me anyway, and from talking to other people, it's, you know, no, bathe your feet in amateur, you know, get used to the game, get used to the style, and then please God, then when you get to the pro level, or if you do get to that level and you're ready to go, you're the best version of yourself, like, you know, and you're ready then to make a stab at it.
If you never even win a fight at amateur, you go professional, it's wiped clean.
That's
your own. It's all starts again. So like that, you're good to get. Why not have a good few fights at amateur? Get yourself stuck in. When you've put in that foundation, get yourself stuck into the amateur fights. And if it goes your way, it doesn't. If it goes your way, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You could go pro. It all starts again.
That's it.
You know, slate's clean.
There's a few other little areas then, like stuff we've had to change, like, you know, small little technical issues, but like, you know, conditioning and stuff like that. And, you know, we're training 3 trees now, and the grappling as well is definitely, you know, it's a different element. So I've been lucky that, so for myself and Ryan, like for years I would have done like a lot of my own sort of programming and stuff like that, but I find like I'd second guess it, like, although like, so I studied that type of thing in college, like, which is sports science.
Yeah, and I'm the same, like doing strength and conditioning. It's like, it's actually quite hard to program for yourself, because you want to be jumping from here to here, and then you're kind of like, well, am I doing the right thing? And so sometimes you do need that to somebody to tell you, like, no, this is what you're doing today.
That's it. So like,
are you working with a coach?
Yeah, I could program for somebody else. So I found, like, you know, I need to delegate to somebody, and so Luke Woods, which a lot of people would be
Luke, of course,
familiar with. Luke now, he's sort of on the tail end of his competing, like, you know, and he's more into the coaching side of things.
Yeah, so for people who might not know as well, Luke Woods was world champion in minus 63 kilo sparring in 2009. 2009, yeah. In Argentina. Yeah. So a very high level ITF Taekwondo fighter. Has a couple of other medals and good achievements, but the World Championships in 2009 would be his biggest one. Yeah, and seems a very knowledgeable guy in the strength and condition, and
that's right, and like
that kind of area.
So he's helped us with a good few little things there now, and made little tweaks to our training programs, which I've really noticed in the last couple of months, especially now that I've been up in a lot of the wrestling and stuff, like, you know, over Christmas and December there we had serious few sessions, like, you know, in weeks, and just even my recovery rates and stuff like that, I'm just finding they're an awful lot quicker. So just quick shout out as well. So like anybody, you know, looking to sort of bring their any type of sport, but mainly combat experience. Like if you're looking to bring your combat level to the next sort of stage, like, you know, if you have World Championships coming up, maybe, I'd recommend hitting up Luke, because genuinely, like he knows what it's at.
Integrity Personal Training.
Integrity Personal Training, I think. Yeah.
That's his handle on Instagram. If you're looking to look him up or get in contact, I'm sure you could get it through there. Also, I think it's Integrity Personal Training on Facebook as well.
Facebook as well, yeah.
So if you're looking to get in contact, you can get him through there.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll appreciate the shout out.
Definitely, yeah.
So we spoke about him already, Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
What's your overall opinion, do you think? He's quite brash.
Yeah, like I find my opinion of McGregor, like, you know, it's sort of like it changes from time to time and stuff like that. First of all, I consider, like, you know, myself anyway to be a different personality to McGregor anyway. Like, you know, just basically anybody who knows me would say the same thing as well. But as I mentioned, like, you know, the way he's marketed himself and the stuff he said, the stuff he's done, like, he has really and truly put MMA on the map, not only in Ireland, but just across the whole world, which I'm sure most fighters would thank him for. If they don't, I think they're a bit stupid not to. Because, like, you know, it's brought in more views, which equals more money, which equals happy fighters, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So, his fighting style, you know, like, I am impressed with, like, wouldn't say blown away by, like, you know, he's very good power, like, you know, all that type of thing. Learn bits and pieces from him. Again, though, his style, he's incorporated a lot of Taekwondo sort of kicks and stuff.
Yeah, like there has been clips of him training with, like, Johnny Dargan, who would have been on our Taekwondo team, our national Taekwondo team. So he's incorporating some of that, and I think you could see that in a lot of his some of the kicks he throws and
so like that type of stuff is just, like, you know, for some people, and, like, you know, maybe a different fighter might blow me away. Like Khabib, for example, would sort of really, really impress me and blow me away, because the wrestling side of things is alien to me. So I'm sort of like, well, not alien anymore, like I have got experience, but because I'm still, like, getting used to it, I'm like, how does he do what he does? Like, you know, how does he control his opponent so well? Like,
even just that figure four leg lock, like the figure four on the legs with McGregor, like, it's something very simple, but he's the only one really doing it.
This is what I'm saying.
He's using
it
and it's working fight after fight. He's just pull the legs together with the figure four with his own legs, and then he can go to town with the ground and pound kind of stuff. But
when I see him doing that type of stuff, like,
but like that, some people who don't know the sport might not see that as being exciting, because it's not big knockout. You know, it's not McGregor, like, hitting Jose Aldo with that left hand in 13 seconds kind of stuff, or the Holly Holm kicking Ronda Rousey in the head. It's not that kind of knockout, but it's effective. And if you have an interest, you know, you can really take that in and see it and appreciate that.
That's it. And when, like, sometimes I'm there, like, for anybody who knows the sport, like, trying to keep somebody down in side control top, I'm nearly struggling to do, like, and like, that's one of the most dominant positions. And then you've Khabib doing what he does. But just back to Conor, like, you know, I have to just, like, hats off to him in general. Like, you know, he's, like, you know, made a lot of money, as everybody's aware of. He's won some amazing fights, like, you know, obviously he's stepped up the challenges as well, so you can't knock him for that. But yeah, like, main thing is he's boosted the popularity for fighters like myself coming through.
But I feel like a lot of the people read a lot into what he says, like, oh, he said this, he said that. A lot of the time, them press conferences, he's just trolling.
That's
his stuff on
thing.
Twitter. He's just trolling. Like, he's just the same as if you were slagging one of your mates, where do you really even mean half the shit you might say?
Yeah,
probably not, but it gets under their skin. It might get them going. You know, that's what it is. The press conferences, like, people are like, oh my god, how could he say that? It's he's just trolling. Like, why are you reading into it? Just leave it be.
It's banter, like, you know, and you know, I think a lot of people from Dublin with a bit of Dublin humour, not only Dublin, Ireland humour, they'll find the stuff funny. Some won't, some will. But, like, I just, as you say, like, you know, it's flown off the tip of the tongue. It's in the heat of a press conference, and the bottom line is it's selling tickets. Like,
exactly,
you know, exactly. You know, that is the bottom line all the time.
No, it's kind of. I am going to ask you, who do you think he should fight next if he is going to fight? But it's kind of topical that I don't know if you saw on Instagram the kind of himself and Paulie Malignaggi had a bit of a back and forth.
I did see that actually, yeah, on my way down here, yeah.
That kind of tells me that the fact that both of them, I think they're trying to sell a fight between the two of them.
Yeah.
I think there had been a bit of rumours during the week coming from Twitter that they were in talks, and then then last night kind of that came out where he was posted a video. Paulie responded with a video of his own. So I think potentially that I think that's what they're building towards.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Me personally, I have to say, this is just from a fight fan, like, you know, what I want to see and what I would really, really like. I would pay to see these fights is Khabib and Tony.
Yeah, of course.
Conor and
big
Max, and the winner's fight. You know, for
fight.
me, that's it. Conor and Max, I haven't watched Max's last performance against Brian, and like, that is the fight to make. You know, it's just,
especially they have the history from where they had the fought before.
Like, you know, just for me personally, I would really love to see that. Who'd I pick? I'm going with Max. A lot of people don't agree with me with.
I'm not saying I don't. I'd have to put a bit more thought into it, but I think, like, okay, Max has come on massively since that fight, but McGregor won fairly handy with a bust knee.
That is true.
So, like, take that knee out of it. McGregor has improved. He will be fighting, you would expect, with no injuries, or at least not an injury to that extent. And then Holloway, of course, has went on that winning streak. Yeah. So I think it's very interesting. I don't know.
It's a cracker.
I think it's very close. I don't know if I could call. Like I said, I'd have to have it announced and put a bit more time and thought into it to say. But yeah, Max, it's a really good fight. I think it's a really good fight. I don't want to see him in boxing. I have no interest in
who, McGregor.
Yeah, I have no interest in seeing him fight Paulie. Really,
I don't really either. Now,
I think, especially if he loses, it just drops his stock again. That's 3 losses in a row, 2 in boxing. It's just stick to MMA. There's loads of good. Like I said, even the other day, it's there's a lot of good fights there, like the Poirier fight, the Kevin Lee fight.
Yeah, they're good fights.
The Cowboy Cerrone fight, they're good fights. Just they're not going to sell.
That's
you know. But even the Nate Diaz fight, I think, is one that everybody wants to see. But Nate seems to just not want to fight. So, just we'll talk about one more thing, because it's kind of has been topical recently with John Jones fought on the 29th of December. John Jones is the greatest light heavyweight fighter of all time. Like, he has the record to show it.
That's true.
He has the wins. He's still going, but there is that little asterisk to some of those wins with the performance enhancing drugs.
Big time.
What's your take? Are you buying the story of it's from a previous test in 2017 and it's pulsing, or do you think he's using microdosing, or what? I
find it hard to sort of, like, you know, believe the excuses, basically. But one thing that, like, I was hearing a lot of talk about this over the last couple of days and weeks, and this just sort of came to my head, that I remember, and you'll remember this as well, Jamie, that when they started bringing drug testing into ITF Taekwondo, right? So it would have been the Worlds 2011, New Zealand.
That would have been the first time really where it would have came in.
So this is now a sport where no funding or we don't get any funding. There's no money for winning. Like, the amount of money in ITF compared to the UFC is like minuscule. Yeah.
Well, there is. Well, technically, pretty much in ITF Taekwondo, there is no money from fighting.
So let's call it zero.
You have to branch out pretty much. Like, are you doing seminars? Are you doing something else? Like, when you step in and you win, you're not getting any money for that.
There we go.
So,
and even circulating in terms of, like, as we say, background resource and all, it's very little compared to UFC. So, sorry, my point is, when they brought in the drug testing for that competition, our Irish team got a doctor in to talk to us at a squad session.
Yep.
We had to send him everything, any supplement we were taking, any medication, anything that basically wasn't food. We had to send to him and tell him. He screened it all. We had to download an app, the Irish Sports Council app, I think.
WADA. The WADA app, you
WADA
can still
app,
get it.
maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what it was.
It's still there. In fact, I'm pretty sure with that app, if you download the app, you can scan. I'm pretty sure it has a scanner for barcodes on medication.
So
you can scan it.
We had to download that.
Yeah.
And so not only did we send all the stuff onto the doctor, we had to put everything through that app. So I was like, even at the time, I was like, this is very thorough, like, you know, for drug testing. So if that's what was put in place for amateur juniors going to a world championships for Taekwondo, what must the UFC guys, what should they be doing anyway?
Well, of course, they have the whole thing where you have the whereabouts, you have to tell them your location all the time, and
so
the check-in.
It's just on a way bigger scale. So basically what I'm saying is, like, if no one from our gang got tagged with anything, or there was no so I don't know if did I hear this right? Somebody was blaming like psoriasis cream or something before.
It was Chad Mendes, psoriasis
so
cream,
Like I said, we had to send all this stuff. Like, surely them guys are doing the same thing. They're sending their stuff onto
Chad Mendes just took the hit, just said, look, I dropped the ball. Yeah, I was using psoriasis cream. It had a anabolic steroid in it, or whatever was in it. And he just took the suspension of, look, I dropped the ball.
Like, when people, so there you go, he admitted he dropped the ball, but other people are saying that maybe they don't know what's in this, what's in that. If I ever got to a point where I was competing in MMA and I was making a living out of it,
you'd make sure.
I'd be checking my cornflakes.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
The thing is, like, see, I find it very... Michael Bisping was on Joe Rogan there a couple of weeks back, and he said that I never checked anything. So I just took shit. I said, never tested positive. Never
I heard that as well.
Didn't check anything.
Didn't check anything. So,
and the thing is, like, everybody's like, why doesn't Daniel Cormier pop? Why didn't Gustafsson pop? Why hasn't McGregor popped? Because they're not on steroids.
Yeah, this is
Do you know what I mean? They don't have those issues because they're not on PEDs.
Yeah.
It's like, so John knows, like, we're supposed to kind of, I feel like we're supposed to feel a little bit sorry that he tested once this time, and it's still causing him problems. It's like, well, he took those at one point in time, so they're the consequences of taking the PEDs. Exactly. So this is tough. But
from any point of view, like, you know, there'll always be then suspicions around certain fighters or whatever. I just think for anybody to even in a podcast setting here and just to sit and say that somebody is categorically on steroids or not on steroids, it's very hard to do, because
it is.
Everybody has to remember the Lance Armstrong story. Yeah, that's just like, you know, and if you don't look back on it and educate yourself on that,
you can't really say.
He, as far as I know, he took court cases against journalists who accused him of this stuff.
He was going full on. He was taking it to the highest level he could to defend and clear his name, and in the end,
and he was doing it.
But when you see how it all ended, he just came out and said, "Yeah, I was on them."
This is what I mean. So, like, that alone will sort of, you know, it will just put everything in perspective, and you know, that's, like, I found that very interesting.
But there's some, like, on the back of it, and listening to all this stuff, like, personally, I'm not fully sure. Is it a pulse and effect, like they're saying? Like, that's why some tests it's clean, other tests it's not. Like, Jeff Nowitzki went on to Joe Rogan and did a whole lot of explaining of potentially what the situation is, and was quoting all these studies of the guy who was involved around the time with the Lance Armstrong thing, the documentary Icarus. He quoted a lot of studies that guy had done, but then I was listening to Brendan Schaub before. He said before, that's what Nowitzki's going to do. He's going to go on, he's going to list out a lot of studies, and in the end you kind of go, I haven't a clue what he's talking about. I guess I'm going to buy his story. But at the end of the day, like, is it true or is it bullshit? I think a lot of people forget is that the UFC are paying USADA. They brought them in. Like, there's a deal in place. Like, I don't know, it's a big deal. It could be like, I don't know, is it over $100 million deal?
Okay, yeah.
So,
see,
like,
that's this stuff I wouldn't be too clear on.
If they wanted in the morning, the UFC could say, you're gone. We don't want you anymore.
Yeah.
We're not paying you the deals off. Or they could pay them off and they disappear, and all of a sudden it's back to kind of the Wild West. The Wild West, as they would have said. Like,
lads with no necks.
Yeah, exactly. So they could. So it's kind of in USADA's best interest to make sure that the UFC are kept happy to some degree, because they're lying in their pockets with this big deal. If they're gone, like, that's a big contract to lose. That's a big deal to lose. So yeah, you want to catch people, but you also do want to. It's in their interest to keep that deal. So no, I'm not saying that. I don't know.
I know, but it's just something to think about. Like, you know,
and I also think for anybody who does use PEDs, I find it very hard. See, I think it's a different case maybe when there's money on the line, right? But just we'll say the glory of going out and getting the win. I know, like, I've been tested, you've been tested, we've been tested a couple of times. I was tested once at that Worlds, and I know I was clean. Like I tested, haven't even heard from them since, which is clearly a good sign. But I know I wasn't on anything, and I won. The same. Now maybe other people may be on something. Again, we don't know. They weren't tested. Daniel Cormier has achieved for what he's achieved. He knows I've done it. I've done it clean. I haven't needed any help from as George St. Pierre would say, outside weapons.
That's it. Yeah,
I didn't need any other weapons to help me win. I done it myself through hard work and discipline, determination. Put the work in and got the result. So I don't know how people we know of Vitor Belfort and the likes that are on it. Like, you're going out and knocking out a guy in 30 seconds and you're celebrating there the same as a guy who, as if you didn't have an advantage.
That's
I find that very that stand over that. And really, when you look yourself in the mirror, can you go, yeah, I'm a killer. When you look at, I'm juice to the gills.
Do you know
here.
what's funny though? And I completely share that opinion, and I'd be 100% in agreement with you. But I nearly think some people can justify it from the point of view that they're nearly saying, oh, well, everybody else is on it.
Well, that's what I have. But
that's something I think people are justifying that it's like sink or swim. Like, if they're not taking it, they're going to be.
Well, back in the day, I know from listening to other podcasts like Joe Rogan, that back in Pride, they used to literally put it in the contract that you won't be tested. So look, it's kind of, if it's there, you're probably a fool not to be on it. The big thing for me is if it's not there, right? If it's not put in the contract that you're not going to use it, then maybe, okay, I can see. I still don't agree with it too much. I wouldn't use it, but I can see if you have agreed we're going to fight clean and you don't fight clean, that's a different story.
That's a different story.
Cheat. I put actually the same thing of, if you said we're going to fight at this weight and you don't make that weight, then you nearly shouldn't be allowed to fight. Or you should be deducted most of your pay. You've broken the contract. We said it was at this weight. We said we were going to fight clean. Yeah. So therefore, why should you be rewarded and get the reward for cheating, and then it doesn't affect you in any way?
Absolutely, yeah.
So
that's it.
I think it's massive.
Look, it's going to be an interesting topic over the next couple of years.
I do think John Jones still beats those guys. Like, the steroids didn't help John Jones see that Daniel Cormier, every time he throws the right hand, he drops to his left.
That's
to see, and Jones to bring that kick and knock him out. So the drugs didn't help him see that. I think what we've seen is the drugs didn't help him against Gustafsson make the adjustments to, I thought it was actually a masterclass performance. Some people thought John was sloppy. Maybe he was. I think he was a bit cautious at the first couple of rounds, and as it went on, he opened up. But I thought he was picking the distance, he was picking shots, he knew the range to keep it at. He had a look, he picked the shots lovely, and he got to stop it. When he got it down and he got the advantage on top, he got his back. He just got the stoppage. I thought it was a brilliant performance.
About from the tactical point of view, and that is what makes fighting sports what they are. There's, like we mentioned earlier,
it's the equaliser.
The cycling or whatever. You're doing the Tour de France. It purely comes down to one thing and one thing only, and that's endurance. There's nothing else really matters. But
I've heard it's actually very bad for your health to do it clean.
Yeah, that's it.
To not cheat, to not use drugs is it's a big mistake. It's very it's climbing uphill or cycling uphill for days to not. But
when you're in there in an MMA fight, as we know, there's so much things going on, or a Taekwondo fight. But again,
it's different. It's different when you're pedaling a bike to you're hitting a guy in the chin.
Yeah,
it's different. I think definitely. MMA combat sports, it's different.
Yeah,
it's different to that cycle, even tennis or any other sports. But when you're hitting somebody and you're trying to do damage to them, that's a different ball game.
That's right. Yeah. Just enhancing that power,
So, I think we're going to wrap it up there.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks
for coming on.
No bother.
Episode 1. For anybody who is trying to find you, maybe on social media, Instagram is probably the best place, is it?
Yeah, just Adam Shelley, nothing fancy.
Adam Shelley TKD? No,
Adam Shelley TKD, I think, but I think if Adam Shelley types in...
Yeah, you're not a big social media guy really, so Instagram is probably...
No, I'm trying to get there, yeah.
Yeah, well, Snapchat I think is pretty much dead, but so I think Instagram's the best place to find you. For the podcast, The Black Belter on Instagram. The Black Belter is the Facebook page as well. If you've enjoyed the podcast, subscribe, whichever platform or whatever app you use to listen to the podcast. It's hopefully going to be up on all social media platforms like YouTube, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify. I'm hoping to have it on all of them. So if you could like and subscribe and share, that would be great. And tune in for the next one. So thanks, Adam.
Cheers, Jamie. Thanks for having me.